So in that case, I'm going to warm you guys up to English. Our next guest Okay. Good morning, everyone. When we were putting together the EBA 2012, we had various options, obviously, of lectures, of people that could be part of this event here in Friburgo. And a very interesting film that's been going around Brazil lately is The Garbage Warrior. And that was our first contact with Michael Reynolds and get to know the whole Earthship. I had heard of Earthship for many years, and we had seen it as an interesting idea and an alternative, but just like so many different groups and so many things happening all over the world, it didn't quite gel, it didn't quite hit as it did after seeing Garbage Warrior. And seeing the film, which has recently been doing its rounds in Brazil and eco-villages and in different communities and making its rounds, and we recently, I think just this year, it got into my hands. And we saw the real McCoy. We saw profoundly how you can make a house 100% off the grid. And as Michael calls it, outlaw architecture. That it's just against the system. There's no government. There's no law. There's no rules. And that the house can feed the people, the house can create its own energy, the house can heat itself, and it was really an amazing approach to sustainable architecture, to self-sufficiency, and as we say in Brazil, na veia. I'm sure I'm giving the translator a bit of a nightmare, but So one of the key speakers was to invite Michael Reynolds to be part of this Congress, and it's with great pleasure and with great honor that Mike accepted to come all the way from New Mexico, from the United States, and to be part of our event here and show and share his work with us here this morning. Michael Reynolds, please.
We have, for over 4 decades, been working in this direction, and at this point we're calling our efforts Sustainable Autonomy for Everyone. It is definitely a situation that has to apply to everyone on the planet and all of the planet if we are to all succeed. The profession that we have evolved out of this is called biotecture, much like what we're talking about here. We call biotecture achieving sustenance through encounter of Earth phenomena. The phenomena of the Earth are our utilities. And we're achieving the sustenance of life that way. That's much different than architecture, which is just buildings hooked up to power grids and utilities. Earth phenomena are wind, rain, sun, gravity, condensation, thermal mass, lightning, rainbows. All aspects of biology and physics are Earth phenomena. We are using those to provide a life for ourselves. A good model of this is a tree. It's actually the best model. The tree takes in solar energy much like the photovoltaic panels do. It's called photosynthesis. The tree drops its leaves. They're not garbage because they make new soil for more trees. The tree recycles. The tree is a living, functioning part of the earth, and that's what we want housing to be, homes to be. The tree absorbs water from the earth. The tree puts out oxygen and absorbs CO2 from animals. The animals like the oxygen. Everything about the tree is breathing in and out life. And we think the tree should be a model for humanity. We approach this with 6 different points. Building with recycled materials and natural materials, and in my opinion, there's no difference. I'll tell you why. Thermal solar heating and cooling without fuel, solar and wind electricity, water harvesting from the sky, contained on-site sewage treatment, and food production. These 6 things every city and every country is having to address. We usually let the government and the corporations address it for us. We want to address it ourselves. We want this freedom. We want this empowerment. The government doesn't do it that well anyway, and if they do it, it is destroying the planet. We want to make these choices ourselves. We want to empower people to make these choices themselves. I'll show you a series of buildings here that employ these 6 points. All of these buildings are doing these things, and it shows you that these buildings have many different ways they can look. Interiors and exteriors. You're always living with plants, whether you have a winter or tropical climate. So all of these buildings are using these concepts to provide a total life for the people. They can take many different forms. Fairly conventional or absolutely not conventional. Dr. Zeus. Any kind of climate, any kind of terrain. And it suggests the concept of decentralization. Everything in the cities today is centralized and delivered in an infrastructure that is very expensive and in most cases very devastating. Every home is centralized and has its own utilities. Housing equals utilities. So the first one will address all 6 of these. The first one is building with natural and recycled materials. Now, again, I don't call the recycled materials unnatural. They are natural too. I have found out that automobile tires, bottles, cans, and many other things are indigenous to the entire planet, just like dirt and plants and many other things. I see no difference. These things occur all over the planet. They are amazing in their amounts. This occurs on our planet. If you came here from another planet, you would think these grew here naturally. Well, in fact, they do. And it's almost a serious crime, because that's very dangerous to store them that way. But I see that and I think city. I can make a city from that. But look at this. It's even under the ocean. These things occur on this planet, all over it, every country. We put dirt in them, beat it in with sledgehammers, lay them like blocks. They become a very earthquake-resistant thermal mass wall, requiring very little skill to do. You lay the empty tire, you put cardboard in to cover the holes, fill with dirt, and you beat it. You can get rid of your spa membership. And it makes a wall. You use regular tools. They are 300-pound bricks encased in steel-belted rubber. They will never go away. It's a wall. Resort community, really every community that separates their garbage, has mountains of bottles. Mostly booze bottles. That's how much booze we drink. We cut them, clean them, tape them together, and make bricks. Stained glass. Every country all over the world has bottles. The bricks will never go away. They can be laid in cement, or they can be laid in mud. It takes very little skill to learn to lay the bottle bricks. And then, all over the world, it's like this. Plastic bottles. So many billions of plastic bottles. They are like dirt. They're a natural resource of this planet. This is in Africa. Plastic bottles, making the same kind of bottle bricks that we did with the glass. This is a school in Sierra Leone. These are all plastic bottle bricks. The students love it. These are the bottle bottoms. Light comes through. Glass bricks and plastic bricks. We use them for shaping the building. This is a gutter to help it collect water, just made with bottle bricks, plastered over, and nobody knows what it was. So we use the materials that we produce, much like a tree. Trees use dirt. Trees make dirt. People make bottles. People use bottles. We have this thing of throwing trash in a waste dump and piling it up. You can call it trash, garbage that way. In my opinion, there is no such thing as garbage. We invented the concept of garbage, but there's really no such thing. So all of the shapes that you can make out of these things are very beautiful. There's no end to what you can do with this. Cans, bottles, and tires. This is a compound in Taos where we can do anything we want, really. That's the law that we introduced in the movie. Now, another thing. Refrigerators, stoves, washing machines, they are made of porcelain panels, baked on enamel panels. We go and harvest them. Every dump, city dump, has a pile of appliances. We cut the panels off, and sometimes we take the doors off the truck too. And we're harvesting material from the dump or a parking lot and using it for shingles. It's as good, if not better, than the material that is customary for roof shingles. It, again, allows anything to be done. I even used it for body work on my Mercedes, which burns grease from a bar restaurant. That's French fry grease being poured right into the car. Tops of linseed oil cans for doorknobs. So recycled materials, here's plastic bottles, are natural materials that we are using in addition to just straight mud and straw. And we use them, and we're not saying that we don't necessarily have all of the ways to use them. There's many more ways than we're even showing. But this indicates to you that these are building materials. So the next category is thermal solar heating and cooling. We're all over the world all the time. Some places we need to make buildings that stay cool, and some places we need to make buildings that stay warm without fuel. The idea is that normal housing is set on the planet. and you have to bring free. It's kind of a concept we're working on called internal space, where the people live inside spaces that are inside spaces. So you aren't exposed to however hot or cold it is outside, and your space becomes stable. We wrap the buildings. If there's an extreme heat or cold climate, we wrap them in insulation. It's called a thermal wrap, and we put dirt, just regular dirt, between that and the entire wall, which itself is compacted dirt, and we have about a 2.5 meter thick wall with insulation around it. No climate can get through that. Then inside, we're growing food from the sewage system. So being in one of these buildings is like being in a jungle all the time. They're ventilated with gravity-operated skylights. The skylights just have a counterbalance, and it opens them, and you pull them closed. The basics of the comfort is, again, you are separated from the exterior by the thermal wrap and mass, and by at least one greenhouse, if not two. You do this to separate you from however hot or cold it is outside. We bring tubes through that go to the exterior, and they go through the earth, and we have skylights that take the intense heat of the greenhouse out, and when it leaves, it creates convection draw that pulls cool air through the room. So it's natural ventilation without using energy, using phenomena of the planet. In very extreme hot climates, we even enhance the heat of the skylight, so it's just like putting a supercharger on this process. It's very much like caves ventilate. And if there's an extreme climate, we'll add another greenhouse, putting you further away from the exterior. So the comfort for the people occurs in here, and the rest is used for harvesting water and plants and sewage treatment. So in a cold winter climate, one of these buildings is warm inside because of the thermal mass wall made of tires and dirt and the rigid insulation thermal wrap, and the greenhouse protecting the human space from the outside, and the greenhouse gets warm and lets the warmth come into the walls. The walls store it and then put it back out at night. It's a common known thing in physics that heat will go to the cooler place. The wall is cooler than the hot sun, so the heat goes in there and stays until at night, when the temperature gets lower, then the heat escapes back. In the hot summer, the same design works. The greenhouse gets very hot, exits the heat with convection, and pulls in cool air from the outside, cooled by the earth before it reaches the comfort zone. So you have created a comfort zone without fuel. And it's because of the buffer zone greenhouse here. These are the tubes being installed that bring in the cool air. A winter diagram of the same building is the heat loss does go out the windows a little bit and out the other windows. There's two sets of windows. And this air space drops to be a little bit cooler than the mass wall that is storing the temperature. When that happens, by physics, the heat will go to the cooler place, and it goes into the room. And it feels like it's turning on a heater. This is a graph that shows in our climate, it gets up to 42 or 41, let's say, Celsius. No, excuse me. It gets up to about 40. And in the cold winter, it gets down to minus 30. There's the change in temperature. We get extreme hot and extreme cold. The house, the earthship, with no fuel whatsoever, stays very, almost like a straight line, in the comfort zone. This is without fuel. This is all over the planet. It shows that comfort can be achieved without fuel. A doctorate person in a university in Australia put together all kinds of material buildings with the roof going up. Jamaica is a little different situation. It's tropical. So we use the big black tanks that they have there. We veneer them with the plastic bottle bricks and bring the water and go into the cisterns. So it's done differently in every climate. There's the water in Vermont coming in through a trough, starting to screen out the silt, another screen out of the silt, and on into the cisterns. Silt is okay. Aquifers beneath the earth do have silt. We just try to control the quantity. We take the water and gravity feed a pump panel that pushes the water through filters into a pressure tank, and then in through more filters and through a drinking filter and into the house. Very simple. We use solar hot water heaters as well as gas backup. This is just a diagram of the solar hot water heater. So the water is very simple. It's caught from the sky and filtered. Your roof is a thing to catch water in addition to keeping water out of your house. Now the contained sewage is really, it's what we call a botanical cell. It's a rubber-lined trench that is filled with big rock and gravel, then a little bit of sand, and then about a foot, which is, what is that? 100 centimeters? No. It's 30 centimeters of dirt to structure the plants. The plants' roots go down and suck up the water, and they oxygenate the gray water and clean it up. And we run it through a peat moss filter at the end. We have a pump to pick up that water, suck it back up to flush the toilet with. So we're using the same water that you took a shower in yesterday, goes through, gets cleaned up, oxygenated, feeds the plants, and then you pump it up to flush your toilet with. In areas like where we live that have minimal amounts of water, this is definitely a way to recycle the water. It causes your house to look like this. That's not too bad. Bananas growing inside in the living room when there's snow on the ground outside. All of the earthships look like this. They look like it does here. Only this is in a climate that has a severe winter. This is a diagram of a typical plumbing system, conventional, going to a septic tank and a drain field. We don't change that. We make it easy. We just add the botanical cells to a conventional system, and then you have the option of going through the conventional system or not. It makes the authorities a lot easier to approve of it. But here you can see bananas growing on the trees, snow outside. No heating, no fuel. So every earthship is like living in a tropical rainforest. But this rainforest is eating sewage. Every single one is full of plants. You're living with plants. In the tropical climates, we have big roofs. We still have to protect the plants from the rain because the plants get their water from the botanical cells. They don't need the rain. This is a little pump panel that sucks up the used water and flushes the toilet with it. The toilet then goes out to a conventional septic tank, which overflows into another rubber-lined botanical cell, which has to be protected from the rain in this climate. And an anaerobic process takes place in the septic tank that breaks the solids down into liquids. And then they flow in here, and it works the same way as the interior one. This is our dry desert where we live. Because we have the black water system in botanical cells, our very act of living is turning the desert green. It's not like we're pumping water up from the aquifers below to make the desert green like they're doing in Phoenix. We are getting water from the sky, using it, and then giving it back to the earth, and the earth produces for us. The earth is really a good friend. We're just abusing the friendship. Causing creatures to come that wouldn't normally live in the desert and move in with us. So, that's the 5. One more, food production. The food production is in the home. Here's a floor plan of a typical earthship. Not too typical, it's kind of big and fancy, but half of the floor space is food production and sewage treatment. The building is not just for people, it is also for plants. So food production, any kind of food you can imagine can be grown anywhere on the planet. We're growing in a climate that has a very short growing season, and it's very cold outside, yet we're producing a tremendous amount of food. Food is usually grown outside of cities, on the ground, and brought in to the city. What we're saying with the use of these systems is that the food could be grown in botanical cells on top of the buildings. If you imagine what this city would be like with that, it would change the whole nature of the city. It's not just an idea because we are actually doing it. So we're taking all kinds of plants and producing food as well as fish. This is a short video of my grandson fishing in the living room of a house. So we're just doing this to illustrate the process. And he just started fishing, he just put it in. This is real time. He's caught a fish. Took him about 30 seconds to catch this fish. So then the rest of it is they clean the fish. They go into the house, greenhouse, and get plants, grapes, salad stuff, clean it with rainwater, and cook a meal from the house. And the whole meal came from the house. They get herbs. The building is producing everything that they need for the whole meal. And that's the idea. Our buildings can produce everything that we need for life, for an existence. These are just more pictures. You can't imagine any kind of food that can't be grown here. Cucumbers, squash, peppers, tomatoes, strawberries, broccoli, even mushrooms, figs. We grow more than we need, so we have to can it and dry it. But this is all grown this food is all grown from 2 buildings in an area in northern New Mexico where the temperature gets extremely cold for 9 months out of the year. So this can happen anywhere, even mushrooms. Chocolate. This is grown from your sewage, which normally is taken to a sewage treatment plant with a lot of money, and it doesn't work that well, and it goes into rivers and streams. No sewage ever leaves these buildings. It goes into the watermelons. Artichoke, eggplant, grapes, all from 2 buildings. Bananas, of course, cantaloupe. This is a test by Dr. Francisco Diaz-Gonzalez from the University of Minnesota. He tested the food out of the Blackwater botanical cell. If it's this number for E. coli, it's not even measurable. And everything that we gave him tested the same way. And we, of course, do chickens with their own little beer can nest. And they lay eggs in the nest. They like it. So we have eggs, fish, fruits, and vegetables. We get into the predatory bugs that kill the bad building that does all of those 6 things. A point that we're making from it is that it has been said that learning to make fire is one of the most important points in human history. And humans promptly begin burning everything on the planet. What we're looking at is the next most important point in human history is going to be when we learn not to need fire. So this is interior shots of that building, just showing a building that does address all 6 points of the sustenance of humans on this planet without government, without corporations, without infrastructure, without using fossil fuel. It's just you and the phenomena of the planet giving you a life. Now this is definitely a pretty flamboyant example of all of this. But I'll show you some very simple examples of using the same concepts now. We use this just to show people that it's possible. And this building is a nightly rental building. There's the fish. It's nobody's home. It's for people to come and stay in and visit. So that's just a little tour through the building. There it is at night. It's half food production and sewage treatment and half for people. But the people hang out in the greenhouse as well. So it's basically a giant greenhouse that heats some spaces for people. Now here is a more simple version of addressing these 6 points. We call it the Global Model Earthship, and it's been done all over the world. France, Montana, Texas, New Mexico, Canada, Mexico, Netherlands, Georgia, and many more have this building built. It comes in a variety of floor plans as far as conventional buildings go. This is mid-range developed country type housing. Studio, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and everything in between. This is in Mesquite Island in Canada where they get very little sun and their winters are miserable, wet, and cold. They couldn't believe these when we put them there. Again, they have garbage, what you call garbage. The same materials we find all over the planet. Just like you find dirt and trees all over the planet, we find bottles, cans, and tires all over the planet. As well as dirt and trees. This is on top of a mountain in Wyoming. 3 weeks later, we had a building there. We go with a group of about 50 people. Interns, part of our staff is about 12. And then we get another 30 or 40 people that join us, and we turn a place like that into a home in 3 weeks. With materials that are indigenous. This is Brighton, England. This little compound got approved by the council, and when we went to start building it, they excavated and found dinosaur bones right here. So it's on hold. This is taking that very same unit and adding another greenhouse for more food production, for more sewage treatment, and more of a buffer zone between you and the outside. We use that for transportation between units in a village situation. So this is a city, really. It can be as long as you want, can go up the mountains as much as you want, and it has covered transportation sewage treatment between the units, and it's all really one concept, just replicated many times. This can be in a tropical climate or a cold climate. This is in Turkey. And normally if you were to build a village or a town this big, you would spend the first few years doing the infrastructure. the energy, the sewage system, and the water system. Each home has everything for itself, and so it does not need the infrastructure. It makes the people have their own utilities. I'll look at this a little. This is just a ground-up animation of that building. There's the thermal wrapping the tire work. So this is the space, but it's wrapped in earth and insulation. So this is your protection and your storage of temperature. The water goes in, the tubes for ventilation and cooling. And this material is everywhere on the planet. And that's how the tires are filled. You just beat dirt into them. Very simple operation. It's not that hard. I've counted about 40,000 tires. I'm still existing here, so. So then it's typical carpentry, laying the plates and the roof logs, and we modify it for different countries and climates, but it's essentially, after the tires, it is fairly conventional materials, wood and plastic wood if they have it, and from then on it's fairly simple. And again, it's a little bit overkill for this climate, because you don't need all of this. This is for a cold climate. You're wrapping it up, you're putting on a deck, and you're super insulating the deck as well. So this is all about insulation in a cold climate, but the same amount of insulation needs to happen in a hot climate. Now I'll go on. People ask us if that building can be built in a city situation. So what they're doing here is creating land to build it on up several stories high with conventional parking lot, parking garage designs, and we're basically building land. It's called a land assemblage. And then we just insert this global model Earthship. It can go 20 stories high. It's the same thing that was just in the previous animation, only here it's not going just on the ground or on a long stretch. It's going up into a multi-story building. This is for a college campus in China. And so this is showing 3 stories, but it can easily go 20 stories. But we always get the question, how do you do this in a city? Well, this is the beginning of how that would work. So it's the same building that we're building on the ground all over the world. It can happen in a city situation. There it is in the Netherlands, Holland, France, Scotland, New Mexico. There's your buffer zone, sewage treatment, hallway, helps you catch more water. Inside, they can look fairly normal. So this is pretty much middle-of-the-road, developed world housing, not high-end housing, but just regular developed country housing. But we have to take it for all of the people. So from here we'll go to the very, very simple application of this. There is Baja, Mexico. That's a hot climate. So the same design works for any climate. And the interiors, even though the building is made from car tires and bottles and plastic bottles, like a normal adobe building. So we've taken, one other thing that we have addressed is these buildings, every country doesn't always have those big logs that were the roof of that previous building. So we're taking the same building and making a concrete vault roof, because every country we have observed, developed or not, has steel and concrete. So we just make a vault and put the insulation on that. And the insulation can be, if it's a developed country, can be rigid insulation, or in an undeveloped country, it can be cardboard. But the rooms are just a series of vaults that are buried in the middle. Steel and concrete vaults. Very minimal amount of concrete used here. That's how they work. Here's one in Vermont. There's what the site looked like when we arrived. This is 5 days later. And this is 3 weeks later. This is kind of a sequence. I'll go through it pretty quick, but the vaults are very simple, and then you just bury everything. The vaults are made on the ground. While some people are pounding tires, other people are making the vaults, and then we just lift the vaults up. Those big stacks are the rigid insulation that goes on the roof. See, everybody carries the roof to the building, puts it on. Very simple. And pretty much minimizes the use of wood in these buildings. And you can do them, like the other video showed, many stories high. This is in the Galapagos Islands. So then we take all of this technology and we take it to the bare minimum for people that are after earthquakes, tsunamis, just needing housing. This we did in 14 days in India after the tsunami hit. The cistern is under the building, tires, plastic bottles laid in mud, bamboo floor, and the vault cement roof. And Guatemala, the cement vaults. China, cement vaults. And Haiti. Now, this building here, it costs more than that. It costs about $6,000 or $7,000. This costs $400,000. So this one does the same thing. What's the difference? It's codes, regulations, loan requirements, lifestyle of the people, and belief systems of the people, and general dogma cause us to do this and spend this when we could do this. We did this in Haiti, a team of about 9 of us, and we left wishing we had this. We don't want this. We want this. I mean, this is great. It's sustainable. The real world can relate to it. But what we have learned from going into third world countries is that the requirements of conventional housing are part of the problem. We need to live more like this. So we did the Haiti project. It is a living space that's the vaulted and the tires, and a toilet, and a cistern, and a shower. And of course the shower drains into the botanical cells, and we suck the water up to flush in the toilet. There it is inside the little courtyard in the middle. The little power system is what we call a one-room power system. It's just a battery and some gauges inside a toolbox with a panel. It'll charge a cell phone. In Haiti, the people were living 14 people in a tent with no facilities whatsoever, but every one of them had a cell phone. So we figured we'd better make it so they could charge their cell phone. There's the plastic bottles in Haiti. The kids gathered them from the streets of Port-au-Prince. We're actually cleaning up the streets of Port-au-Prince and building housing at the same time. There's the toilet back there. And there was nowhere in sight or anywhere near where we did this was there a flush toilet. It was all on the ground, in compost toilets overflowing. The sanitation is crazy. Outbreak. People were waiting in line to use this because it was a flush toilet. Here's how it works. The rain falls on the little dome. The water catches into a cistern. The cistern gravity feeds a bucket. You take a bucket shower. You don't really put it up over your head like that, but you sit down in here and take a bucket shower. It drains into a botanical cell, and you suck it back up out of the botanical cell and flush the toilet. It goes into a septic tank made of lorry tires, which separates the solids from the liquids. They overflow into another botanical cell. There's the entire sequence of plumbing. Very cheaply done, very sanitary, and pretty much it's the bucket flush toilet. See, you're sucking up the water into a bucket to bucket flush the toilet. You got no toilet parts to ever wear out or leak. And this worked so well in Haiti that we're trying to put it back into the United States, having a hard time selling the authorities a bucket flush toilet and a bucket shower. But this is the water system. There's the shower. You just sit on that rock and take a shower. This is gravel. This is just a little slab of concrete that's domed. This is gravel, and the water immediately disappears and goes into the botanical cells. And people were waiting in line to use this as well. There's all you do. You don't put a valve because people will steal it and it'll break anyway. We just have a switch. And we turn on the switch and water fills the bucket from the pump that's down in the botanical cell. Dump it in the toilet, it flushes. Notice there's no tank. There's nothing to wear out on this toilet. It'll last forever. There's the septic tank with the lorry tires. The solids stay in here. They leak out into the gravel, and that's where the anaerobic process takes place. And it actually takes place in here, turns to liquid, then it goes out into the rock. It's all rubber lined. It functions just like a conventional septic tank, only a little bit better, and people can build it themselves. So there's the building in Haiti. This is about 14 days and about $7,000 for a little Haitian villa, is what we call it. There's the plan. There's where the people live. Here's the little courtyard, toilet, cistern, shower. They have a life. And we're replicating that now and turning them into villages of these things. The people can build this too. There's nothing here that's difficult. You can make big villages. And the local people helped us. We gave them certificates and paid them. They couldn't believe that. Then, taking it further, this is a flower with 8 petals. We have a design that is like petals of a flower. We call these flowers, and we're doing these in Africa. These are vaults, just like the vaults I have shown you, only in this case they're classrooms. And these are toilets for the classrooms. The water catches in the middle in the cisterns, gravity feeds the toilets in this case, and the toilets drain into the botanical cell wrapping around the whole building. Again, we taught them to do it like we did in Haiti. The vaults. Again, the one-room power system that we have trouble taking these on the airplane. They're small, so we can take them on the airplane, but they think it's a bomb. So we get held up. But it runs a pump, it runs a couple lights, it charges a cell phone, it'll even charge a laptop. There's a school in Sierra Leone. These are the bathrooms, these are the classrooms. There's the plastic bottles. The kids wrote things about this building, and they all started wanting to come to school. And we trained the Sierra Leone people, and we only had the money to build 2 of these classrooms around the flower. And they built the other 6. So we know that we've transferred the knowledge. There's the school. That's the part we built. The kids went to school. They love it. They sang in the classroom the last day. People were crying. And then we get asked to do 2- and 3-story versions like in the row housing in cities. So this is just a quick example of that. Three-story building. So this is going up to illustrate that point in New Mexico. And then this is the ultimate simple thing. We're doing this in Guatemala in January. It's the little one-room toolbox power system, a very abbreviated bucket flush toilet and bucket shower, sewage system. This is simple survival. It's got everything. You can charge your cell phone here. You can work on your laptop. But this building will probably cost about $15,000. We've built one in New Mexico with students. It can be 2-room. We've changed the design a little for New Mexico. We don't put the little huts around the toilet facilities. We just put them in the greenhouse. It's a little easier to do and warmer. There's the version for Guatemala. Again, in Guatemala, the sewage system, which is here, has to be protected from the rain. This is a version for Tierra del Fuego, but that's basically what it would look like. We did it in Prague as well. And it can be made larger. And again, the one-room power system keeps evolving. We use solar ovens, solar refrigerators, and DC-powered water warmers. Just your kitchen situation is simple. It's called simple survival. But it's taking these 6 points to the level of ultimate simplicity and very minimum cost. This is in Prague. It's all over the world in all kinds of versions, from expensive to medium to very simple survival. We're really making a point of this simple survival at this point because of the people on the planet. 83% can't afford housing. 17% can buy houses, get mortgages, and do developed world stuff, have jobs, have cars. But 83% of the people can't do that. You know, because of Asia and all over the world, there are 83% of the people don't have housing. That's why the simple survival version is actually the more important version to use. This is a quick animation. I'll just go into it a little bit of the simple survival going up, and then we can have Q&A. It's just like the other animation, only much more simple. Again, the tire walls are labor. The thermal wrap is storing your temperature. And in this case, is layered thinking. We have to think in terms of water, power, sewage. This is the planet, never taking more than it gives back. It's a constant exchange with the planet. And if we continue to do that, or even start doing it, let's say, we will have a relationship with the planet that will allow us to be in existence for another few thousand years, for sure. If we don't do that, we could be gone in decades. So this is the very ultimate simple version of the entire amount of information that we have presented, and making the point that every home has to address those 6 points, and every home, the concept of addressing those 6 points has to be available to the 83% of the people, to the mid-range people, and as well as the high-end people. All people need sustenance and autonomy to be able to go forward on this planet. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Very incredible, inspiring lecture. And well, now we'll go to a couple of questions. If we can have if someone wants to write down a question So just keep it simple. That'd be great. We have Sophia walking around collecting a few questions. Here's one. Okay, here's an interesting question. Is it possible to build a 2- or 3-story structure without the use of cement?
Yes, the question is it possible to build a 2- or 3-story structure without the use of cement? We use cement a lot because we're usually in a hurry. We have to go someplace and get a building built and leave in a month. Without the need for time as being a factor, we can almost eliminate cement from these buildings. You can do the round circle with tires. We've done bamboo roofs, spoke roofs out of bamboo, wood roofs, and the entire building can be take the use of cement down to a bare minimum. If you go for mud floors, which we've done, you can pretty much use these techniques without the use of cement if you have the time for the mud to dry.
Okay, another question here is, the system works as residence. Would it work as commercial spots, hotels, restaurants, 100% energy and water reused?
Yes, the method of building being used for residence, it's basically the same for a hotel. A hotel is a residence. An office complex. We did it for a school, a hospital. We're talking about hospitals in Africa right now. These methods can be used for almost anything except a giant department store or something like that. And we probably shouldn't have giant department stores anyway.
Okay, here's another question. What's the average percentage of regular commercial materials used in the airships?
Usually it's 50-50. 50% recycled and natural materials, and 50% things like glass and wood and metal and steel and concrete. So it's about 50-50, but as I said before, if you have the time and you're not doing it as a business, you can probably make it more like 75 natural recycled materials and 25 commercial materials.
And please tell us more about the Earthship being built in Midtown Manhattan. How did you solve the problems concerning the Earthship concept and the urban setting? Is it off the grid 100%?
Yes, in Midtown Manhattan, obviously from the storm, Sandy, everybody in Manhattan is out of power right now. Still, lots of them. Of course, the sewage is all flooded, so how are 30 million people or whatever it is using the toilet there? I don't even know. The water is all contaminated. They're living there without any utilities, and it's millions of people. These same concepts will work the same way. The biggest factor was bending the sun to bring it down into the building. That's doable. The codes and regulations don't even address the things that we're doing, but the authorities, we have been through the council twice, and the authorities like it. One of them said, hell, I want one of these for myself. They like it because they know that New York can go down, and now it's gone down. New York going down because of Sandy is just causing this building to happen faster. We're drawing it right now. The council has given it the nod. The guy is working on the money for it. And yes, it will be off of all grids, but what we're doing is hooking up to every grid and metering it and showing. We're hooked up to Con Edison electricity, but we're not using any of it. We're hooked up to your New York sewage system, but nothing's going through. We're hooked up to your water system, but not using any of it. They're bringing water down in 20-foot diameter tubes from upstate New York. They're desperate for water. Their power is very funky, and their sewage goes into the sea. So New York is a joke. And this, they know that. And this is going to show them, and it gives them like training wheels for us to hook up to their grids, because they're scared for us not to hook up to their grids, yet they know their grids are failing anyway. So we're just saying, anything you want, we'll do anything you want. We can just always have our power, water, and sewage working, and our building warm when everybody else in New York is freezing due to lack of power.
Have you tried the use of dry toilet?
Yes, we have, and we have used, I usually don't have that much time in these short shows, but we have used compost toilets, and we actually invented a solar toilet that totally fries human waste, turns it to dust. We took that to the base camps of Kanchenjunga and Everest and K2, and up there nothing goes away. They don't have microbes to break it down. They don't have flush toilets. So the solar toilets work good, and we have also used compost toilets. The reason that we stay with the flush toilet is now that we can use that water for growing food, and we're using secondary use water, not fresh water, we can give people what they're accustomed to in the developed world. Because if you really look at the numbers, the amount of people in the developed world who will actually use a compost or a solar toilet is like 5%. They just don't want it. They want a flush toilet, and even if it goes, you know, they even know in the back of their mind that when they flush their toilet, it goes into the bay or the ocean, but it goes away from them, you know, to somewhere else on the planet that we're abusing. So we used to use the dry toilets until we invented this system. Now we use this pretty much everywhere because we don't try to convince people to do something different. We try to show them a different way to do the same thing.
What is the material of the thermal wrap?
The thermal wrap in a developed country is rigid insulation made by a chemical company. It's insulation board. Lots of countries have it. If they don't have it, we use cardboard wrapped in plastic. Every country's got cardboard. We've even used straw bales. You can use styrofoam. It's any insulating material that you can wrap the building with after you establish the extra meter of earth with the tires to give you enough mass to store temperature.